And we're off.
Hello and welcome to the Sunday Sermon. My name's Lee Keys. I'm standing in for Catherine Fry this evening. Accompanying me tonight is John Lang, and we're going to get through some of the hot topics of the week. It's an interesting week for sure. We've got some cracking topics, and without further ado, I'd like to get on with the first one of the show. This will be Charles Byrnes, Jabba the Hutt. If some of you aren't aware, Charles Byrnes has been charged by Horse Racing Ireland for laying horses with an associate for large amounts of money and injecting the drug ACP, which is currently appealing. John, any views on Charles Byrnes?
Well, yeah. Firstly, I think Horse Racing Ireland's got themselves in a bit of a mess over all this. I mean, when I was reading about this, the first question that crossed my mind was, why is there any permissible level for the substance used? Apparently, this was 100 times the legal limit, but I'd like to know a bit more about what this sedative does and why there's a permissible limit for it anyway. I would have thought if it was going to be banned, it would be banned, full stop. Any trace and you're out. Secondly, basically he's got done for leaving his horse on its own in the racecourse stables, which again, Horse Racing Ireland really should get their act together and get CCTV in all the racecourse stables. It's not realistic to say a horse can't be left alone, especially in the current climate where you're sending skeleton staff to the races. The lad in question could have been up at 5 o'clock that morning, ridden 3 or 4 lots, took the horse to the races and not even had time for a Mars bar. So, what they're stating really isn't realistic.
Don't you think that Horse Racing Ireland, like you say, have got quite a bit to answer for in the fact that we're going back really to the Dermot Brown times. This was what 30 years ago, Norwich, something like that. The Doncaster, the Champagne Stakes at Doncaster, and you'd think by now that they'd have adequate testing facilities, that they would have, like you said, security on race courses to prevent this, from happening. And the fact that it is happening, the thing from my point of view is Charles Byrnes has been allegedly caught with 3 offences for 12,000, and 3,000 stakes laying on Betfair. They're not the only 3. Anyway, a shoplifter doesn't get caught on the first attempt. There'll be many cases of Charles Byrnes drifters, and since Betfair began. So no one does it just 3 times. He'll have been doing this in my view.
But what's the official line on this as regards Byrnes? Are they saying he's definitely involved, or are they saying they haven't actually got evidence against him?
Well, he's quite. I've only read the articles, which basically states that it's come from an account with the Asian match fixer, and basically there's been high levels recorded of ACP in the said cases. So apart from that, that's the thing. In a court of law, in a way, this can't, unless they've got linked evidence that's got the Asian max fixer giving Charles Byrnes money, like transferring it to his banks or one of his company's banks or anything like that, or they've got him on CCTV administering it. I can't see how they can get him for being fraudulent in a court of law.
This is what I mean. I think they're on a really sticky wicket because I think that they've put him off really because there's some nasty people around. That's the thing that underpins everything that they're saying. Well, there's some rotten buggers around, doping horses, so you can serve 6 months. It opens up for a scenario where if you fell out with a trainer and wanted him put off, you don't have to chance your arm, go to the racecourse stables. Worst case scenario, if you get caught, you'll get warned off. But if you don't, you get away with it. The trainer's losing his living, and you get away with it.
Well,
he's going to get put off.
Exactly. I mean, if you think about it, racing is so ripe. But I mean, I'm amazed any criminal wants to rob a post office and nick 10k out at safe and end up getting 5 to 10 years for it. When you can literally do what Charles Byrnes has done. And basically get what will end up probably a rap on the hands, because without physical evidence, I don't see, like you say, if say Charles Byrnes wants to escalate this to a court of law and he's got top barristers, and Horse Racing Ireland have got absolutely no evidence whatsoever in linking Charles Byrnes to financial links to the Asian match fixer.
Well, Horse Racing Ireland are going to get kicked into the Atlantic, aren't they?
Pretty much. And it starts really with Horse Racing Ireland just having the measures in the first place to stop it happening.
Yeah, I mean, if they're putting anybody off for 6 months, they should start with themselves.
Absolutely. Well said. And on that note, we'll finish there on that topic. Second topic of interest put forward tonight is the public perception of racing, John. The wider public, not the people that are in the game, but the public perception of racing. What's your thoughts about that?
Well, as you know, I'm a people person from the top of my head to the tip of my toes.
Yeah.
And, I think chances are, as things stand, I think the public have got racing spot on, sadly. Especially if they think that the game's run by bumbling amateurs and the participants are probably among the biggest deficits in the entire gene pool. We can't police the sport properly. We can't finance the sport properly. We can't make information about the sport easily accessible. I mean, look at Yank football for starters. Sports bettors can find out the last time a quarterback had a shit or if he takes 2 or 3 sugars in his coffee. We can't make people aware of new handicap ratings till the horse is in the 4-day forfeits. How do you find that out unless you're looking in the 4-day forfeits for the Racing Post?
Yeah.
Joe Soap, not a registered owner, going on the BHA updates and things like that.
Yeah.
You've got serial wrongdoers welcome back to the fold like prodigal sons, even if they've been actually put off for some time. These people are a burden on the sport. They never face any serious questioning from the media when they come back. Bradley came back, everybody just wanted to tickle his tummy. The BHA are most likely to come down like a ton of bricks on somebody with 4 horses in training and living on Aldi beans and pony nuts. The serial money printers at the top table, newcomers at the sport, they must scratch their heads over how they never get done for anything. And if they do, it's more a tickle on the end of it than a slap on the wrist.
Yeah.
For me, for the public to have any sort of decent perception of this sport, I think we need a clear out from top to bottom, or we're stuck with being perceived like a dark art rather than a sport. The likes of Lineker was playing hell on Twitter about
shit. Yeah, absolutely.
This is a man that pushes crisps at fat kids. and yet, he abhors the idea of somebody having a £5 reverse broadcast on a Saturday. That's public perception for you, that's the state we're in, and that's where your Rod Straits and people like that are marketing to the wider market, as they keep telling us, their wonderful tactics of getting Vinnie Jones there every time there's a free lunch on a Saturday. It's not working.
It's funny. I concur with just about everything there. And the funny thing I touched upon earlier when I was chatting about it was the fact that racing just doesn't help itself in any shape or form, and never has done.
No.
I mean, the thing is, they waste so much money on trying to appeal to people that it will not appeal to, and it just beggars belief what they are trying to achieve, instead of looking after its own incumbents, the people within the game. It wants to waste any budget it has on trying to persuade people that they are 50 to 1 to change anyone's mind regarding horse racing. Like you said, Lineker's tweet the other day. There's lots of the BBC don't have racing anymore, so they're generally anti-racing. It really is a sorry state of affairs outside racing.
It's the people that they give contracts to as well. I mean, Great British Racing is an absolute shambles. They have the Shergar Cup, right? That they say brings new people into racing. Now, the Shergar Cup, it's been going, 10 years now? I don't know. But
probably longer.
Whatever. Not once has anybody had the sense to put a discount voucher out to everybody that attends so they can see what the take-up is at a subsequent meeting.
Yeah.
To see if it's had any effect or not. Not once. That is scandalous marketing.
Yeah. I mean, having visited tracks around the world, well, lucky enough to do so. For example, you go to America. It was $5 to get in. You got a free race card with form.
Yeah.
Basically they gave you the DRF race. So basically, proper full form, not just the jockey silks and
back out of shit.
Yeah. Beer prices were good. Burger prices were good, which helped me. You come to racing in England, you've got literally it'd be £30-40 to get in. Some tracks on just an average day, and for the county stand or the best stand, if you like. And then
wait for the bloody ice cream, unless you make Easterby.
He gets freebies, yeah. So yeah, it kind of we really do make sure we make a lot of our goals, and I think, like I said, the Grand National comes around every year, and it's never going to get any better. And my prediction is within sort of 10 years, I think the first thing they'll come for is national hunt racing, because it's like that's what causes the most fatalities. That's the toughest part of the game, and sometimes it's very difficult to defend. If you're going to run 3 mile, 3.25 mile chases on heavy ground live on TV, you can expect some bad sights sometimes, and I think that's it. It's hard to defend to the wider public if you don't change your ways in that way. But anyways, we should, for me, my opinion, we shouldn't be doing so. I think we are what we are. It's a fantastic sport, but you're not going to change the wider audience. They've made their minds up, and we should stop spending money on it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Right. Third itinerary on our itinerary this evening is should more turf tracks go all weather? John?
Yes.
A resounding yes.
A resounding yes. Yeah, indeed. We've got climate change. I know there's climate change deniers and all the rest of it, but I mean, for me, it is happening. The flat season carries on all the year around most of other parts of the world, to varying degrees. Now, if we had more all-weather tracks, we could carry ours on a little bit better than having this plethora of 0 to 35 handicaps. Well, it seems like a plethora of 0 to 35 handicaps, although they're not. And also, we have so many tracks now where the slightest shower absolutely ruins the ground due to consistent overwatering. We could actually switch to off turf if the ground was affected in any particular way, you know?
Yeah.
Also, we could cut the fixtures as well if we raced all year round on the flat. We could have a manageable fixture list. And, I mean, I would be radical with this. Newmarket has more than enough space to add a dogleg 2 mile track.
Yeah.
Newmarket. Ascot could fit one in. It'd be probably a little bit on the tight side with a short run in, but they could fit one in.
Yeah.
That would save it being swampy every time for Champions Day. Haydock, essential in my book. You know, York could fit a nice galloping mile and a half inside their existing turf track.
Without doubt, yeah.
As could Colwick Park. You know, which I think would give you a nice spread across the country. And I personally, after all the chill we had with Clark Watch, me and Nick Davis, and the aggravation that you have now coming up to a big meeting regarding whether they're watering, not watering, what the going forecast says and what the going really is, stick ratings, I would be quite happy, in all honesty, if every scrap of racing in this country was on the all-weather now.
That's interesting. I was like, you know, when you sort of, you know, mentioned this to me, I was sort of like, oh no, you know. But then you consider the commercial and economic side of it. You know, for example, tracks will have to, especially for big meetings, we'll be taking out bad weather insurance. You know, everything really to ensure that the costs are covered if you know the weather takes hold. It's not cheap either, and I think it's good commercially worldwide. You're not having abandoned meetings all the time. Like you say, you can race all year round. I see plenty of upsides. The only thing that sort of grates on me is I'm just worried about atmosphere. Don't ask me why. I just think that like it's maybe because the all weather tracks we've got, but there's very little atmosphere at our all weather tracks from what I've been to. I don't know why that is. I don't know if it's because it's the hooves rattling. I don't know. Do they make a different sound? It sounds crazy, but when I go to say a turf meeting, I always get more of a buzz than I do when I'm at an all weather meeting. I don't know why that is. It's probably standard horses I own, but
if you went to York in May and it was a full house and it was on Tapeta, do you think there'd be any difference atmosphere-wise?
I don't know. That's my one worry.
Personally, I don't think there would. I think you'd probably have a bit of mourning and chuntering for a couple of years, and if it became the norm, I don't think anybody would give a monkeys.
Well, I've not been to a plate meeting since it's been Tapeta.
No, I haven't. No.
I'd like if any readers are listening to this, if you can get back to us on
that
Twitter.
Would be a good barometer of it, actually.
Tell us what you think of Newcastle plate meetings atmosphere-wise, because obviously that would be a good barometer in that it's always been a very popular meeting.
Yeah, that's as good as it gets at the minute, isn't it? Really, the plate.
Yeah. So yeah, that'd be interesting to hear. So if you have been, let us know what it's like. But I mean, the only issue I have with all weather tracks is I don't think we've got the ground staff levels in this country, say like the USA. We have far too many track biases here, for me anyway, in comparison with the USA. I don't know why that is. I mean, I have absolutely no experience of how you harrow tracks, how you work them over.
They like chucking money at projects like this. They could get Michael Dickinson over for 6 months.
Yeah.
And talk to him or whatever, you know. I mean, they love a consultation exercise, don't they?
I mean, don't get me wrong. The USA get biases. I mean, you know, sometimes you've heard of the Golden Highway at Hawthorne. Breeders' Cup meetings, sometimes it's front end, you can't come from behind.
But
so they have the,
it's got beyond the joke now on the grass even, because I mean the July course is absolutely ruined. Like,
yeah,
it is ruined as a punting medium. In all honesty, I mean, you don't know what the hell you're getting. I mean, if there's that rails bias up the near side, well, forget it. Know. And how many guineas have been ruined lately because of the track bias? I mean,
it's true. I mean, it must. I suppose when you look at tracks like Newmarket, it's like a wide expanse. It gets quite windy there because obviously it's open.
Yeah.
So it kind of, if I'm presuming they've got a watering system that goes. Is it the one that's low to the ground? I'm not sure, but if you've got any sort of wind with certain watering systems, obviously it's going to blow it, and then you're not going to get
it's a foam system. I'm convinced that he tries to water a bias out anyway, and half the time overdoes it.
Possibly.
I don't think he's a patch on Captain Lee's myself.
No. It's. I mean, it's. I think. Like I say, I'll finish by saying my perspective is. I agree with some of your reasoning. Think commercially it could be very good. Plus, as well, I mean, you can potentially do what Newcastle and Southall have done, install floodlights, and
absolutely.
And it's no problem. If lighting very good, then stick the lights on, kind of thing.
Yeah.
All sorts to make things better. But yeah, fair shout. Interested to see what any readers thinks to that. Whether more tracks or more turf tracks could possibly go all weather. It's certainly an interesting talking point. Right, on to questions and answers. And we've got a few questions this week. Beachy Head John has the first question, and he was rather angry by saying, "What did we think to the misinformation from the BBC regarding the vaccination centre at Newbury Racecourse and Newbury races taking place, i.e. no vaccinations for that day?" He was rather upset with the BBC on that headline. Any thoughts there?
Well, I tend to think that the BBC is full of shit over everything these days. And I think they were trying to whip a non-story into a story, because there's another place race this week, Taunton, that's a vaccination centre, and the Taunton manager or clerk, whoever they spoke to on the telly, was saying that they'd thrashed everything out beforehand. He said when they approached him about becoming a vaccination centre, he said he'd be delighted to, but racing is their business and it would have to fit around 9 days racing, which to my mind is what would have happened at Newbury anyway,
Yeah.
And if the BBC had actually asked a question rather than just gone for sensationalist headlines, I think that's probably what they would have found.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't read too much into it, but I read that apparently Newbury Racecourse came out and said that they hadn't got any vaccinations anyway. They had to, apparently it was Thursday, the day after. That was when the vaccinations were arriving, so they couldn't have done it that day anyway. No. So I don't know. I don't know if that was like you say, it's a business decision. But end of the day, if they're offering vaccination facilities of that scale to the government, it's a good thing, not a bad thing. And it's 1 day. I know it's a crisis, but at the end of the day, is it that bad? I don't think so. No. Second question from John H. Is racing's dodgy image starting to catch up with it? Doping, huge backhanders at the sales, horses being stopped at Cheltenham, according to an article by David Walsh today. Are our chickens coming home to roost, John?
They will do eventually. I mean, people just get sick of reading about, well, as I said earlier, serial wrongdoers just getting welcomed back into the sport. You're not going to sell racing to new people when other sports are putting people off for life and things like that, I mean, but it's got to come from the top. And the people that are at the top at the minute are not fit for purpose. They lack the will to do anything. They lack the savvy to catch anybody properly. And they're too intent on not spilling any gravy.
Yeah.
You know, you will never sort this sport out while you have a top tier running the game that have to have been kicked out of Sandhurst for extreme stupidity. You know, and that is the top and bottom of it. You need some commercial minds, and you need to get rid of the old school tie. It is abhorrent, really.
I mean, regarding doping, I mean, there's no hard evidence to say it's actually taking place, right? However, to me, what you've got to do is you've got to look at markets and ask yourself why the Irish markets on Betfair are absolutely dead and are probably taking 20% of what British markets are.
Yeah.
And why then, if Irish racing's so clean and great, why do Irish trainers send them over to England for touches? Simply because there's more liquidity on exchanges. And also, why have the Irish got such an amazing record in modern times at the Cheltenham Festival? I mean, I think it's self-explanatory. I mean, our trainers, Paul Nicholls, Nicky Henderson, like, in general, there's only sort of Nicky Henderson, I think, that competes with the Irish at the festivals. I think everybody else might as well just,
There's a lad on Twitter who's been putting some old race cards up, and I got the shock of my life. There was a card went up from, I think it was 79 or 80, something like that. There was one Irish runner in the Supreme Novices.
Yeah.
You know, I thought, Jesus, and like the spread on Irish winners, it used to be like between 4 and 6, didn't it, on the week?
Yeah, I mean, like back to when I were a nipper, it were Fred Winter,
yeah,
and Michael Dickinson, and now it's and David Byrnes, and now it literally is dominated. I mean, I do understand it's the big breeding operations. You've got Gigginstown, you've got McManus, and you've got rich American flounderer, Bouquet, Rich Richer. And it kind of just corners market a bit. So I do get that. I do understand that. But at the same time, the performances we see at Cheltenham from them often supersedes anything they've ever achieved. And you've only got to see that in the Caspian Caviar with Mick Winter's Chatham Street lad. I mean, it's won that race 15 lengths in a stupidly quick time. Again, superseding anything it's ever done and achieved by about £20. So
it could have actually won that by a furlong, couldn't it?
Oh, I remember saying to a friend of mine straight after the race, I said, honestly, I think if that had to go around again, it'd still finish with the same energy and the next one. It's ridiculous. But yeah, I mean, back to his races, dodgy image starting to catch up. Yes, I think like you say, you try and attract a newcomer and try and explain the form book. You end up having to tell them about, well, I won't back his because you need to see market support and so on and so on. It's not really an attractive proposition to any newcomer, I don't think, from the peg. But yeah, John, good point there. I certainly think in time, I think we're going to see some big problems for racing owners as well at the bottom end that basically can't afford to keep going on this reduced prize money levels. Nick the Nipper, next question, and he says, thoughts on Bouvardere? 20s for the champion hurdle looks big, he says. John?
The last time somebody said the price looked big was before the King George on Boxing Day. And so in some ways I'm loath to get involved here, but I will. Obviously it could run really well, I mean, it's Henderson. We don't know what occurred between him, his last run and rating off. Whatever he tells us, you take with a pinch of salt, really. The only thing I would say is they don't tend to win their titles back. I think was Comedy of Errors the last one in '75. I can't think of any others.
See you then. Did he win it?
They won 3 on the spin.
3 on the spin, right? I think you're right.
I think Comedy of Errors won it in '73. Lanzarote beat him in '74, and then he won in '75. And I think that's the last one to win its title back. So, based purely on that, 20 at 1 is probably not big. I thought it ran all right yesterday.
Yeah, it kind of got the ride I expected. It might not have been. Some punters were outraged at like Nico's sort of like flapping but we kind of again, if you've been in game long enough, you kind of know with the green.
You weren't going to bet it, were you? You know, I mean.
No, well, we said, didn't we? We said on Friday's cast that it's one of them where you need to be in the know, kind of. I mean, I kind of predicted that's the ride it would have got, but you'd have needed to sort of be told. And if I'd have been told that's the ride it was going to get, then I'd be pressing pink.
Yeah.
But like you say, we were playing with a marked deck, and it was impossible. But my thoughts are, I mean, Binocular was written off that time in the champion hurdle, and a big drifter on Betfair. Catherine loves that Binocular win, and I think Belvedere. I think I'm not so sure at this age. I'm not so sure. I'd rather look for something else, but I can understand people look comes back to his very best. But anyway, right. Next and final question comes from Paul O'Rourke, and he says, "Why can't full-time traders, punters, get any credit mortgages despite having kept immaculate records for years?" And he's viewed very differently to something like a stockbroker or a hedge fund manager. John?
I think the problem punters face regarding getting credit or a mortgage is computerised now. I think it's the system. All-style banks, where you used to you'd bank somewhere for years, wouldn't you, from being a kid? You know, like the old Yorkshire penny, they'd get you an account when you were a kid, and you put £1 a week in or whatever, and that savings account would be with you for life. And if you wanted a mortgage or you wanted a loan, you went in and saw the manager, who basically knew most of your financial movements that you'd made for the previous 25 years. And these managers had a bit of leeway. They knew if you were of good character, and they tended to know you met regular payments going into your account, or whatever, and it was a judgment call for a manager. Now it's a system, and I think the system itself will always put a red flag on somebody that has a profession that we're going back to the public perception of racing again. But I think the people that write these systems are the public with a pretty shitty perception of racing.
Yep. Completely agree.
They'll be the people that say you never see a poor bogey, and it's like, how many people do you speak to outside of racing, like, and you'll tell them you're a professional gambler? One of the first things they'll say to you is, "Do you win?"
Yeah, absolutely.
How long you been doing it?
And I try. By the way, I try not to. Literally, it depends who they are, but I usually just make something up because it's just I can't be bothered.
I've been a professional gambler for 20 years. Do you win? Well, no. I don't.
I'd give it away.
I chase squirrels through the night.
Speaking of which, a text has just come in, John.
Oh, dear.
In the Noah, regards to Catherine's whereabouts. Well, apparently she was setting fireworks off last night at Wadden Road. With the Man City game, and someone's also said she was caught in the passenger seat of Alfie May, the number 10 of Cheltenham Town's XR3i. What do you make of that?
We'll be lucky if she's back for Friday.
I think so at this rate. Anyway, sorry about
that. It needed airing.
Yeah, it did. So anyway, that's the questions done and dusted. I agree with John there about Paul's question. Personally, I view it as a privileged profession in some ways, in that I don't pay income tax. I'm taxed at source from Betfair, and therefore I'm not in the system. So how can I participate in public activities such as mortgages, etc.? Right. Anyway, on to the final, last but not least. This is where we might make you some money. The Jimmy Lindley non-buzzards section, dedicated to our lovely pair of hands pundit for the BBC for many years, who I do miss quite markedly these days. John, have you anything for our listeners for this week?
Yes, I have. Now, the only thing with this one, I'm a bit at a loss to explain why it might have been stopped yesterday. But if anybody cares to have a look at it, they couldn't come to any other conclusion. And this was Zuckerberg yesterday's Haydock.
All right.
Lined up at the back. Now, Sean Quinlan, I think, tends to line up midfield to front if he's busy. And he basically sat at the back like a pudding, going right down the back straight. And there was a bit of carnage at the last fence down the back, which sort of resulted in him by accident humping his way into fifth. And at that point, the hopes flared for the punters for the last time, because Quinlan was absolute zero help the whole way up the straight. He sat there like a constipated mouse. There was absolutely no question asked of this horse up the straight. I mean, he could have come in and said it had choked or whatever. I don't know, but dreadful radish in backed it. I mean, it was only about 4-1 second favourite, you know.
Okay, so Zuckerberg.
Yeah. On this subject as well, the horses that we're flagging up, we've got a runner tomorrow night.
Oh yeah.
Morley, who I flagged up last week, of David Simcox, goes up a furlong in trip, which I felt was essential. Goes to Kempton, which is probably ideal sort of track, really. There's a nice bit of pace on. Jamie Spencer's up. 3-1 isn't splitting the atom by any stretch, but to me, there's probably only the Ed Walker horse to worry about. I think this will win tomorrow night.
Okie dokie. So that's 7:15 Kempton tomorrow evening. That was John's eye catcher the other week. Morley running up in trip at 7 furlongs, I believe. Jamie Spencer in the saddle. So good luck there. My horse I'm going to add to the list. I come up with one of Noel Mead's last week. This week, not necessarily a non-trier or a non-buzzard, so to speak, but Grange Island ran on Tuesday at Clonmel, finished fourth. It was a fairly useful maiden hurdle for the track. Was basically given a sighter. It was held up out the back, brought home, staying on nicely into fourth. It's not something no one can't see, but I did like him physically, and I like that he's quite well bred. He's a half brother to the Martin Pike fourth and Galway Hurdle third, Make Your Mark. He was trained by Willie Mullins, ended up rated about 145. And I said, I do like the horse physically. I don't know what route they're going to take, because they've already shown enough really to win a novice hurdle. I would think on most average tracks in Ireland for sure. Mm-hmm. I do think that he's going to be better than, say, 120, 125, which will win most sort of novice hurdles in Ireland at average tracks. So I don't know what they're going to do, but I'm very keen to support him when the next run, because he's a lovely type physically, and I do think he's going to turn out into something pretty decent. So that's Grange Island for me, trained by W.J. Burke, and I don't know his first name. All the years I've been in racing, I even looked on the internet to see if I could find out his first name. A good guess would be William, wouldn't it? But I don't want to say it and then get it wrong. So if anyone knows, tell me what his first name is. W.J. Burke, the trainer in Ireland. Right, that's covered it all off for us nicely. We'll be back next Friday with previews for the weekend, and again next week's Sunday sermon. As always, they're the two time slots. Friday evening, round about 7:45, and same on Sunday, round about 7:45.